one of the criticisms of this movie is that it's woke. Okay. And I want to spend 2 minutes on that word because we need to take back that word.
Yes, I agree.
So people have an understanding of what it really means. And then when people throw it out as a criticism, that we say, what's a problem with it? And let me say this. Woke is being aware of and attentive to important societal facts and issues, especially when it comes to racial and social justice. I don't know why that's a bad thing.
Right, so you said that really quick.
Okay, you want me to do it?
Yeah,
okay.
Say that nice and slow because I think it's important because the word gets weaponized
Right.
from all these different places. So say it slow for me.
Being aware of and attentive to important societal facts and issues, especially issues around social justice and racial justice. And I don't know why anyone would be embarrassed of that.
What's the problem? And if we were going to ask our biggest critic or the biggest critic, or let's say Ben Shapiro, how would he define woke? Would he define it differently? I think he would.
Oh, yeah. He would say it's propaganda and dogma, and so he would use different language.
So we're just using one word having very different definitions.
Correct. Equal justice, societally, culturally, racially, strive for. We're not going to do it overnight. We're not going to do it perfectly, but that the goal, the trajectory is going toward equality. It's funny. My daughter just noticed that in our kitchen, there's this little thing that I have on the windowsill that says, "This is an equal opportunity kitchen." And she's, "What does that mean?" And I told her that growing up, like when I was a kid, my mom had that in the window in the kitchen, which is why when she died, it was something I wanted for my window. And I, growing up, also didn't completely understand what it meant. And again, it's a joke about everybody should participate in cooking and cleaning and everything, but equal opportunity for all people to have what you would call alpha or beta, and this is non-gender specific, to have the ability to do the work they want to do, to have the ability to tell their stories, to be represented. And that's it when it comes to gender, to sexual identity, to race, I don't understand why that's something to be embarrassed of or offended by. Mm-hmm. Now, again, when I say I don't understand, I do understand because I listen to what other people say. I understand the perspective that a lot of people are offering. When I say understand, what I mean is I hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily connect with it, but I'm listening. It's just that these words, as you said, Todd, that get weaponized, sometimes we have to really break them down and be like, is this something I'm embarrassed of doing? I'm actually think it's lovely and wonderful that in a movie like Barbie, they have such a significant representation.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we want?
Yeah.
Men are represented in this movie.
And for those of you who have not yet seen this, like when I walked into the movie, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't read anything about it. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is one of those movies that swings the pendulum the other way, because there's so many movies that make women look weak or the damsel in distress. So many movies out there. It's guy focused. Women are a backseat if they're in it at all. Maybe this is one of those where it's like really heavy on female or feminine. And I was like, because I'm this beta male, I'll call it, I'm okay with that. It's okay if it's like a women dominated movie, because I think that most movies out there are male dominated. What I found out upon seeing it is that this is a layered, complex movie, and is very thought-provoking because, of course, they talk about equality and things like feminism and things like that, but they also, the females call themselves out for some of their own behavior and how they pit men against each other for their own benefit. So I don't want to say like it's equal on both sides, but it does paint a lot of different stories within the confines of this movie. And it's not simple at all. Like, it's thought-provoking.
Yeah, it's so layered. Let me say this. I know that a lot of people you're starting to listen to this, and I know our audience is primarily female. I know there are men who listen, and I think that's fantastic, and I'm so glad. There are women who might be listening to this who would like the men in their lives to maybe listen to this podcast and this discussion. And so I want to make sure that everybody feels that they are being heard and seen. And I want to explain something, not explain in a teachy way, but this is the critical thinking piece, is I want all genders to understand that I imagine a lot of men have walked into Barbie or looked at the trailer or looked at the people are wearing pink and going to the movie and saying, that's a bunch of woke garbage. You couldn't pay me to go there. I hate it. So imagine girls growing up, and that especially for me, like I'll just talk about my generation, like all of my role models in movies, or at least 90% of them, were men. I had to be Luke Skywalker, and I could look through Luke Skywalker's eyes, and I didn't walk into that movie and go, oh my gosh, just a bunch of men being men. Where are all the women in this movie? It's not fair. They're not fair to the women. Now, maybe we talk about some of that now in terms of we really only had one woman in that movie, but I just walked into that movie and looked through Luke Skywalker's eyes and tried to be empathetic and relate and have him be a hero. And I'm using that because vast majority of people love Star Wars, but think about any movie. Think about all the Marvel movies. Yes, we have Black Widow. Yes, we have Wanda. Most movies are about men.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting to me that I have been able to live my life looking through men's eyes and developing empathy. As I got older, I started to realize and notice, but I felt that the empathy and the compassion was similar. The struggles were similar. And then now it's really nice we've talked about on this show before, but the first two movies that I really saw that really made me cry were Wonder Woman and the Ghostbusters reboot with the women. And that was a long time ago now, but Todd and I talked about it on the show, and watching Wonder Woman go across that field and being the only person who was willing to cross those battle lines. And I've never seen it. I had never seen it. Now maybe it's been done. And to see Ghostbusters, the movie ended and they showed the three women as the stars. Like they showed a clip of them from the movie, and then it said Kristen Wiig. And I had never seen that before.
Yeah.
And maybe there's been indie movies. People can point things out. Believe me, I searched for these movies in the 90s and I did find them in indie fashion. But as far as blockbusters, you got to understand what I'm talking about here.
Sure.
I'm talking about the big movies. So when I hear men or boys say, oh, I walked in and it was so annoying and I walked out, or I'm not going to go see that because it's a bunch of women, it's so uncomfortable to me because I'm like, why is this so difficult?
Well, here's the deal. So I'll speak from the other side.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know Gosling was in it. I did not know Margot Robbie was in it. I just heard there's a Barbie movie. I have zero interest in the Barbie movie. Maybe that's because I never played with Barbies. Maybe that's because I don't think my sister did. Like, it was never around. So this isn't for me. This is for other people that like Barbie.
Sure.
So that was my initial impression. And then when I thought, oh, there's some societal messages around it, I'm like, okay, now you got my interest. I just want to say that if somebody doesn't know that, like, I'm not going to go see the Barbie. It's a kid's movie. Like, you don't know until.
So maybe initially my impression was, I don't even know what this is, but you go in and you have the experience. And I think that what you did going in, you saw the excitement that we had about the Barbie movie. So because we're still on this topic, did you want to play that maybe 30 seconds of Ben Shapiro talking about this? Because you'll get the gist of how, and again, I know Ben Shapiro is his own thing. He's a very right-wing conservative. He's a conservative speaker.
Talking head?
Yeah, pundit. And he always has strong opinions. He likes to be over the top. But he was so angry about this movie.
Well, and he wants attention,
which we're giving him.
Giving him that attention. No, I haven't heard this yet, but I'm guessing I know it.
Just started at about 1 minute. Yeah.
Piled atop a landfill filled with dog. It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. On every possible level, it is a horrific movie. The only thing that can be said for this film is production design. Production design is really nice. The costumes are really nice. Also, it's really hard to screw that up. It's really hard to screw that up because you literally have this to model after. All you have to do is this, but big. Okay? It's really not tough. But put aside all of the beautiful costumes, which is there for the ladies, and all of the production design and the Barbie universe and all of that. Every joke that happens in this film happens basically within the first 45 seconds of the film. For example, Barbie turns on the water and there's no water. Ooh, because like in Barbie house, there's no actual water. Do you get it? And then she drinks, but there's no actual liquid in the actual cup. Oh my God, because she's a Barbie doll. Oh, I get it. Okay, that's all the jokes. There are no more jokes for the rest of the film.
Okay. That's not, from my perspective, that's not true. I think it's a very funny movie. And part of me hates talking about Ryan Gosling because I do think he steals the show. He is the one, and Margot Robbie's great. Everybody's great. Kate McKinnon.
Why don't we not say he steals it and he just really enhances this movie?
He enhances this movie.
Yeah.
And to oversimplify what this movie is based on what he just said is simply a ridiculous statement from my perspective. It is a hilarious movie. And whenever I hear guys, and I've been so a part of hearing men get so offended when it comes to things like this, it always, to me, it's like whenever there's that much of a reaction, it's hitting something inside of that person that he's not willing to look at.
And again, it's the critical thinking of, I understand and he did a 45-minute rant, by the way. That was nothing.
Yeah, it was 40 seconds of 43 minutes.
He went on and talked about how he used woke like 12 times. He just didn't like it for his own reasons. But I think the critical thinking piece is look at movies and see who is always centered in the movies. It's usually white males. That's typically what a movie is centered around, and recognize that statistically, and that there is a movie that has a different approach where it's very smartly trying to point this out, that it is really like he's walking in saying it's stupid right at the beginning, because who's centered in this movie? Ken is literally an accessory in the Barbie universe. Yeah. And the whole point of that is that's not reality. So the joke or the realization, and it's not always that funny, meaning it is funny in the movie, but when you really think about it, is here's a place where women are centered, and then men are saying it's man-hating when they're trying to point out that this never happens. And that when you get past the time of playing with Barbies, which is my next point about this movie is also about the familiarity of girlhood. You are told when you are young that you can do, and I'm speaking for women, gender specifically, that you can do anything, that you can show up as you want, that you can be whatever career you want to be in. You can dress this way, you can look this way, you can have short hair, you can have long hair, you can do whatever you want. And then you get to it, and that's when you're playing with Barbies, right? The world is open to you. You're flying planes, you are the president. And then you hit this point where you realize it's not true. I'm not saying it's 100% not true. You still have some access, but not the kind of access you were told you had. And that's the point it's trying to make. That's one of the many points it's trying to make. So for someone to come in and say, oh, it's so man-hating because the women are centered, doesn't that sound to you a little silly? Like that's the whole organization of the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't recall a moment in this movie of man-hating. There's discussion about the patriarchy, but do we debate that? Do we debate that our society and our culture has been developed by men? Is that up for debate is what I'm asking.